There we go. Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about remembering to reimagine your life. So let's get started. If you like what you hear today, please leave a like, tell your friends, send me a message. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about remembering to keep your perspective and also remembering to reimagine your life and update your vision. I think most of us are pretty familiar with the whole cycle, right? We get a little busy, so some things kind of slip by the wayside, and that causes us to have to postpone some other things, and that leads us into cutting some non-essential things out of our schedule to kind of catch up, right? Those non-essential things are things like taking care of ourselves, remembering our vision and our goals, planning, exercising, taking time off, all those other things that we kind of throw to the wayside. And in what seems like the blink of an eye, all our carefully laid plans kind of lie in shambles under a pile of should haves and disappointment. The hard part, though, is recognizing that this is happening and stepping back, forcing ourselves to make time and kind of restarting the process. I would say it also tends to get a little more difficult as we get older and have more experiences because much of what we do, we've done before. And so we think we should be kind of immune to falling in the same old traps again, since given the season, kind of like filing income taxes at 11 o'clock on April 15th. We'll never do that again. And then, there we are doing it again. But there's another more subtle aspect that we often overlook. And this is that the world has probably changed from when we first formed those experiences and the present time now. It could be in obvious ways or subtle ways, but chances are some or perhaps even most of what we based our experiences on has evolved. I was watching a video today of this fellow who, for the last 10 years, has been making his living actually teaching people how to make these spectacular, truly spectacular time lapse videos. Unfortunately, it's only been financially successful for the first 8 years, and the last 2 years have really been a struggle. As I listened to him, I thought, what parts of that he's talking about could apply to me and to my peers? And it occurred to me as I listened to him talking about how technology and his audience has changed that he was not good, and he talked about this, that he wasn't good about adapting to those changes. Most of his instructional videos are like 15 minutes long or longer. Well, now the rule on things like Instagram and all those short video reel things are keep things under a minute, maybe even 30 seconds for some content. Well, I mean, how do you teach something in 1 minute? Differently. That's how. And I listen to my grandkids talk and the information they pick up and the content they consume to get it. And it's all extremely short form content. But they're attuned to listening to many short things. If you're older, you're more attuned to listening to a single longer thing. So I then started thinking about how changing, the changing world has affected my work situation. Right? Just before I started this, I had to silence my work phone because it's going off almost nonstop for a while as one of my teammates was replying to all the various messages that accumulated for him in late afternoon. Because we have 3 different messaging apps that we regularly use. Similarly, one of our ongoing problems in general is that we have 4 ways to share information within the team. And they usually have overlapping use cases. We just had a meeting on this today or a meeting on something else and it came up there. It's kind of, well, shouldn't we use this? Well, we already use this. It's kind of like, well, but I think we should use this for that. And it's just amazing. We have all these choices and it causes a different kind of friction. These are both relatively new issues with the advent of less expensive and more pervasive connectivity. I know some people say, oh, this stuff is not new. You're just figuring it out. It's kind of, no, actually, yes, the stuff has been around for a while, but a lot of things that used to be a lot more expensive have gotten bundled into bigger packages or they've grouped a whole bunch of them together as a single product. So the landscape has changed and continues to change even in the context of how we work today while we're working. And so things a year ago were considerably different than they are now. And the rate of change is it's surprising. You have some method that works well last year, and this year it's either outdated or not supported, or the IT department has moved on to a different provider, and now this one whole thing is no longer available. We've been through that a couple of times in the past couple of years. So, the workplace rather, is evolving right in front of our eyes. So this means our experiences both have to evolve as well, And we have to be aware that our experience may no longer be relevant in this context, right? Ouch. We spend our whole lives becoming experts in something, and that expertise no longer matters, which of course can lead us into one of two likely outcomes. We can recognize the need to adapt and to evolve with the world around us, or we can get annoyed at the changes and complain and withdraw. But we already know one of the things that can reliably guide us through exactly this type of situation is keeping sight of our vision and reimagining our lives in the context of the current world. To be very clear, this isn't changing our principles or necessarily even our ultimate vision, but our goals and the path to our vision were built upon a world that has evolved over the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years or more. The old analogy, right? If you were flying from New York to San Francisco, and once you took off, your pilot, he doesn't just aim the plane in one direction and hope for the best. They have to keep making little changes, sometimes big changes, as the winds shift and they have to move around storms in the way, and just everything moves the plane a little off course. If they never made any corrections, who knows where you might end up? Might be a great place, maybe not, but you really have no way of knowing. Similarly, when you re-envision your future self, that's a specific outcome with many parts, but it's also in the context of the world around you. As the world changes, your vision and relationship to the world will likely evolve as well. Which brings us back to the previous decision, should you adapt to the new world or get annoyed and bitter? It's probably more in your own best interest to stay connected to the world and fine-tune your vision, rather than to fall down, that Dante's hell of spiraling into the inferno, because if you just say, well, if you just disconnect, that's what happens. Everything seems to get worse and worse. You become more and more disconnected. And we meet those people all the time. Go, I don't use a phone. Those cell phones are terrible. Everything on the internet, they have, and it's just kind of like, okay, but how much are you missing? Maybe you can't talk to your kids, your grandkids, or whatever because of it. And I think I mentioned before, my mother started using email when she was something like 90-something. And then started surfing the internet shortly thereafter to pick up recipes and things. She could have been like a lot of her friends and just said, well, I don't want to be involved in any of that. But she wanted to talk to her grandkids. And that motivated her to stay current, not super current, but current with the technology and do things that her friends were amazed. She'd print out things and schedules for them and stuff. They go, oh my gosh, how do you learn how to do all that stuff? It's because she wanted to. It's completely in our control. Because what do you have control over? You will have control over how you react to the world. There are many things in the world that you just cannot control, but you can change your reaction to them and try and act in a way that will both reduce their effect upon you as well as making it more likely that those bad things will be stopped. If you withdraw and isolate yourself, you'll just be miserable and the evil will have no resistance. So another reason to update your vision is because if you keep this rock solid vision that can never evolve, then you may very likely end up with significant cognitive dissonance and quite off course from where you had planned to be. But few things will really drive you to distraction faster than trying to force yourself, to try and do something that you feel is truly wrong or just a waste of time or not consistent with your vision. For this reason, it's really important to continually kind of contemplate and continually re-envision your life. It isn't a one and done sort of task. You should really be visiting it every day. Think about, is this consistent with what I want to be doing? And every time you set a goal, obviously the goal should be consistent with where you ultimately want to end up. But most especially on a regular longer term basis, once a month, once every couple of months, you have to make sure that your vision is still consistent with how you see yourself in the world as it is today. As the world evolves from very many reasons, you may realize that your previous vision, kind of this personal perfection, only made sense in a different context. Your updated vision may be bigger, might be smaller, might be different, maybe it is identical, but it will be what it is because you've revisited it and checked that it's still relevant. Life is all about learning in every way, learning about others, learning about life, and learning about ourselves. I remember reading a story last year about this dude, and he always wanted to be an ocean beach lifeguard. Well, he retired from finance. I think he was like in his 50s or something. And he talked to the town, worked out all winter, and passed the very strenuous physical to be an official lifeguard that following summer. And he was like 2.5 times the age of all the other lifeguards. Now, if it truly meant that much to him, all right, then more power to him. But if it was an old vision that he just felt he had to satisfy, well, hopefully he balanced that all out and it brought him some, a summer of fun. But it's one of those things. He was now quite a bit older. His life had changed. He was wealthy. Was this still a relevant goal? That's only he can answer that, obviously. But that's, you want to keep track of what your vision really is and make sure it stays current to where you are in your life. It's never too late to live towards our vision, but it's also never too late to check and make sure our vision is still relevant. As the world and life evolve, we have to evolve with it. Part of that's to make sure that we're still living life in a way that brings joy to us and to those around us. It doesn't mean embracing things we think are wrong, but we have to be careful that we aren't unhappy just because the world has changed a little bit. Different isn't necessarily bad, and learning new techniques both keeps us mentally sharp, it also keeps us socially engaged, and that will tend to lead to a much happier and satisfying life. So that's it for the evening. If you've been feeling overwhelmed or cranky, try and step back and make sure you're still living life in a way consistent with your overall vision. Remember to make time for yourself and to take care of yourself. Don't be immediately upset if something has changed. And remember, the reason it may be annoying to you is because of cognitive dissonance between the current world and your experiences. But then try to remember how much the world has changed in every way. Many of those changes are useful and quite good. Your homework, always optional, is to think about some things you find annoying in the modern world, big or little, and write them down. Now think about why you find them annoying and if it goes against your vision. Extra points if you take at least one of those annoyances and try and recast it as something positive and also something that supports your vision. If it can't support your vision, check to make sure that your vision is still relevant both to yourself and to the world as it is now. Do you really want to listen to those baseball games on AM radio? Might have been fun 50 years ago, but life has changed. So that's, as always, UKR7.com is still up. Links there to various places. Remember, the war is still going on, very much so, in Ukraine, in Israel and Palestine, many places in the world. Haiti, there was just somewhere else too. Niger, just a lot of things going on that really need your prayers, good thoughts, meditation, however you want to send good energy to people. UKR7 is one way to do it financially. If you want to support Ukraine, World Central Kitchen, WCK.org. They go in places, disasters of any sort, another good place to consider. And as we said, many times, one of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others. You can do it financially. You can do it just by being supportive of people you meet around you. Just anything you do, bring a little cheer into somebody else's life. Just make the world a little bit better place. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting and useful, please pass it along. Please hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.